Hello, I'm Malcolm Hazlitt. How much do you know about the name Kokoda and what really happened there, and how does the Addams Family TV show resonate with today's youth? Keep watching and you'll find out on Our Time. Kokoda is the great story of one of the Ocker's poorly trained young guys plucked off the street of Melbourne who, with his mates, helped to do the impossible, inflict defeat on the Japanese war machine for the first time in World War II and then send them packing. Why are we talking about this? Because it's my great pleasure to welcome our first guest, Peter Madden and Todd Gray. Peter is the writer-producer of the show Kokoda, and Todd is the person playing... Yes, and dressed perfectly for the part.
Might have gave it away.
It might have, Dad. But playing the soldier who went to the Kokoda, I guess we call it trail, is that?
The track, as it was known then, and it's become interchangeable since.
Now, Peter, you've written quite a few things, but why did you write the piece called Kokoda?
I was interested in the story, having read Paul Ham's history on it a few years ago, and I thought it would make a good story for the theatre. But in particular, I was very interested with the similarities and the differences between this story and that around, say, Gallipoli. And the similarities were things like sort of military incompetence, political meddling to the detriment.
You're not suggesting the British did something out of...
They didn't really exactly trump the occasion, I don't think.
Well, they didn't really understand it, I think, is a fair thing to say as well.
Well, they were somewhat reckless with their ideas about how to advance all of that, I think.
But also they didn't really think about the climate change between what would have been reasonable in Britain and reasonable in Australia, and suddenly you're tramping amongst mosquitoes and...
In Kokoda? Yeah, well, no, the Australian command was at fault. They had committed all their troops over to Egypt, and what was left behind was the homeland militia, which was somewhat derided as these chocos, the chocolate soldiers. And I think nobody thought that they were ever going to be called upon.
And why were they called chocolate soldiers?
Because people thought that they would melt in battle, because they hadn't been brave enough to commit to the AIF.
It's genuinely extraordinary. When we talk about war, we're lucky that we're living really in an age that so many local Australian people are not being trucked off. Whether they wanted to be trucked off or not. My experience was with being of the right age during the Vietnam War. So watching the performance, which I've done, watching the performance, it made me think what and how could I have been affected, a soft old actor type like me, suddenly thrust into this sort of environment. How do you feel, Todd, and what preparation did you make to play the role?
Well, it's funny you mention it. You know, war is something I've always kind of stayed away from the majority of my life, because my grandfather, actually, I've got a very close connection to this. My grandfather, Alec Oliver, he was a medic on the Kokoda Trail, and he was a louder-than-life character, you know, first one on the dance floor, last one off kind of person, and he never spoke about it. And I remember when I was a teenager, he passed away when I was 16, I remember kind of hounding him once, you know, tell us a war story and stuff like that, and he told me one about a kid who he didn't know how was alive. He was virtually missing the top quarter of his head. And they said, save him, do what you can. And he didn't cry. I remember he didn't cry, but he just went into himself, you know? And just seeing how that changed him, that's the reason why I never even looked in the war, and seeing that it could do that, just one memory could do that to this person. And you know, there's hundreds of these boys, there's thousands of them, you know, plucked off the street. You know, they'd be down having a drink with their mates at the pub, or, you know, punt on the GGs, or bloody, just... You know, wagon school these days. These were the people who were sent out there to, you know, defend Australia.
Was it the last round of people that were sort of left in Australia, of men?
Oh, I think so, yeah. The AIF had been fully committed at that point, and this homeland militia, as I said, they just were to do a job at home, and everyone sort of derided them. But once the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, even though they'd been aggressive for 10 years in the region, everything changed, and suddenly, as it was very suddenly, within months they'd taken Singapore, they were bombing Darwin and Broome, and these guys were just totally underprepared and not of their own fault. The Australian military did a very poor job. For example, this outfit that Todd's wearing, which is authentic for the time, totally unsuited for the jungle.
Yes.
It's you know, you can spot this a mile off. And they didn't get to wearing
And I could
khakis
say
too much
how
later.
so, but when we see his hairy legs, we just know the mosquitoes would have gone crazy.
Exactly, and so they didn't wear long trousers till very much later. So the mosquitoes and the malaria and dysentery, the malaria that arose from the mosquitoes and dysentery and so forth, they got very badly attacked, and because the army just hadn't thought through these conditions.
Yeah, well, my dad was in the Second World War, not by choice. He was a primary food producer. They were called up at the last minute. They were actually sent white feathers in the post to try and cajole them into joining of their own volition until they were drafted. But I remember he had woolen uniforms to go to Darwin. Just crazy,
That would have been a
just
nightmare.
crazy. Not that I remember, I wasn't sort of around at the time. Peter, writing a piece like this, it's a one-man show. We should just explain that the Kokoda story is a one-man show, obviously starring Todd, playing the character. But it's an unusual choice, I suppose, to do a one-man narrative. That what's fascinating is how you've introduced sort of surround sound into the theatre. With the lighting effects and the sound, you sort of your mind blurs into reality, believing that you are this guy. And when I saw it, I remember saying to you afterwards, it's almost as if you're the spirit of the man coming back and telling the story.
I remember you saying that.
Do you feel a connection with the person that you're playing?
I do. I obviously, once again, going back to my grandfather and everything like that, but with all the books and the documentaries and that you watch, you kind of, you connect with it. And when you said that about the spirit and all that, it was bizarre. That was the perfect way. I'm not good at wording myself at the best of times when I'm on my own, but that is the perfect way to sum this up. It is just a memory, and that's what it is, and that's what a lot of people want to forget about.
It's a visual memory. Yes, that's another way of putting it, I suppose. It's a visual memory. Your plan is to take the show further, though, Peter.
Yeah, I'm hoping that if this season goes well, and we seem to have received so far a fairly favourable critical
We've
review.
only got a few more performances left, sadly.
That's right. And then I'm hoping to take it to the Melbourne Fringe, bring it back for the Adelaide Fringe for a season, and if all things go well, maybe take it to Edinburgh next year.
I think it would be great to go to Edinburgh because it's a completely Australian take on something they probably know very little about. And with people now talking more about the war years, no matter whether they're the current ones in Afghanistan or whether we're talking about the Vietnam time or whatever, the more we can talk about these things, the more we realise how valueless war really is to human nature. So as a writer, you've written other stuff as well. What have you done?
My two previous works, which have been at the last two Fringes, have been comedies. So I thought I'd have a go at writing something a little more
Attack
dramatic.
of the Emotional Pygmies.
That's right.
An interesting name.
And then a sort of a parody or a social comment around that siege in Adelaide, it was called, around the media's approach to sort of those sort of big events such as sieges and bushfires and those kinds of things, where you got transfixed by the television's coverage for hour after hour, and yet really at the end of the day we see very little new. We learn very little new, and the interviews provide very little new, and it's remarkable that unless you remain glued to it all.
Was a TV host, I actually remember, with the Darwin Cyclones, going in and for a whole day doing a live broadcast, which was a combination of a fundraiser and a news service, and we were just saying the same things over and over again and trying to get people to donate money, and we didn't really understand the length and breadth of it at all because we were locked in a studio about the same size as this one. Did you come to writing later in life, or have you always written?
No, this is a new endeavour of mine. I was in sort of venture capital, new venture creation for the previous 20 years, and that all got pretty tough. And I've been reviewing shows on my own blog on a thing called Christoph, and someone suggested one day that maybe I should have a go at writing. So I've always been interested in writing and telling a story, even in the corporate world, and that's really what a lot of the work was about. And I've been fortunate. A lot of people have found what I've written to be of interest and wanted to be involved, such as Todd for all three shows, and that's been very satisfying. It's
good when you find an actor who can interpret what you're writing, but it's even better for an actor to find a right person that's writing for you. What's your background, Todd?
Well, I graduated from the Adelaide College of the Arts, AC Arts, down on Light Square in 2009. And the first few years, funny enough, I was doing mostly just a couple of pantomimes here and there, and I got into stand-up comedy, and I've been doing stand-up comedy around Adelaide since about 2011.
When will it become sit-down comedy? That's what I want to know. I'm sitting down, I'll boom.
When it's the football show, the footy show, if that's comedy.
So yeah, I started doing comedy all around Adelaide and got into that and kind of gave acting the nudge a little bit. And then after a few years, I was lucky enough to decide with one of my best mates to go travel Europe for 2 years, getting the working visa. And that changed my life. Seeing the world, seeing the beauty it has, seeing some of the horror it has, you know. When I came back, it just gave me the kind of the kick up the backside I needed. And since coming back, luckily, I just met Peter by chance. I mean, when I came back, putting out, you know, want to get back out on the floorboards again.
And these have come out of it, which is great. Look, it's rare that we get an opportunity to recommend something, but I would seriously recommend wherever you see the name Kokoda and it's a performance, this is the man who wrote it, this is the man performing it, it's really worthwhile seeing. It just gives you a much better take on human nature and Australianism, I would say. And here is just a little taste of what you'll see with the show.
You know that land invasion? The one wasn't coming, I mean, ever? Well, it's 2 p.m. on the 21st of July, 1942, and the Japs just landed on the beach and now headed this way to Moresby. Jesus. And here we are, with just 70 of us with the job of sending them packing. Here they come. Christ, there's hundreds of them. Look, men! Fire! Fire! Oh, Jesus Christ! They're just keep coming! This is suicide! They won't stop coming!
You're probably wondering where Janice is. Well, Janice is floating around the Mediterranean somewhere in Venice, I think, this week. Lucky her, poor thing. What a shame on all those canals. But instead of having Janice here, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Dr. Anthony Hubmaier, who is the Head of Performing Arts and Director of Music at Scotch College here in Adelaide, and Taylor Prime and Ben Francis. If only we had an audience, we could all clap. Hey! Thank you very much. The reason we're talking to you is because I guess it's being called drama a lot more, and musical theatre a lot more is now finding its way into most secondary colleges and high schools. And obviously you're one of the leading one of the leading schools here in South Australia who have a program specifically for that. Just tell us a bit about the program before we really chat to the other two lovelies.
Well, the program's been developing over 20 years, so we're still on our journey. One of the important parts is bringing together all of the performing arts, and we've seen that a musical does that very well. So it's part of a pyramid process, so to speak. We have dance, we have music, we have drama. We also have media in there as well.
Now here's my big thing that I always say to people. So why do you call it drama when it should be called acting if the others are called singing and dance?
Well,
there's a question.
Music.
And music is called music, it's not called necessarily classical or pop.
It's a good question.
I
guess the categorising of the activity helps, particularly if people want to understand what is it that I'm actually going to be doing in the subject.
Learning to act.
But the dramatic, why we often call it drama is because it's more than just acting, because you're going to be covering a whole lot of other scopes, particularly, you know, script writing as well as the backstage thing. So it's about the things that go behind the drama.
So do you think you'll ever end up teaching comedy?
That's part of what we do within drama.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay,
very
good.
important part of it. And
good.
Improvisation.
And how much really has to happen within the school environment? Do you feel that the students are really going to move forward?
Look, there's a lot of really high quality schools that offer drama. There are a lot of external community groups that offer a lot of coaching in drama as well. And if I use an analogy of, say, for instance, music, there's a lot of external private teachers who enhance the skills that the people bring. So quite often our drama programs are enhanced by what the experiences students have in the community. Now at Scotch, we draw all of that together. So we're finding that students who come in with some prior experience in the performing arts enhance the skills and raise the standards for those students who may not necessarily be involved in the sort of community
Or who
groups.
may not have thought they could be.
Well, precisely. Well, everyone's got potential in performing arts.
Well,
Some
everyone
people
can
have
be an
different
audience,
levels.
can't they, to start with? So to understand what it is you're seeing. No, but sometimes we forget that too. That
I think that there's more than just being an audience. There's the appreciation that they too can join in and be involved.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I think the drama and musicals, as well as performances, community singing and etc., is that immersive stuff. And we're really proud of what our students are able to encourage the other people in our audiences to enjoy.
Exactly, that's the point I was making.
Yeah, good.
So tell us about this production that you're playing, Morticia. You don't look like Morticia at all. There must be a lot of makeup involved and wigs and things.
Yes, I have to wear a lace front wig to get the black hair of Morticia.
Could have always shaved your head.
Yeah, well,
Someone else does that. That's another character.
Oh, Festus, Uncle Festus?
That's the one.
Okay.
What I really enjoy about this musical is that our lead cast is like an ensemble kind of cast. It's not just one person that's on stage most of the time. It's like all of us are on stage most of the time. And I love that our ensemble are like year 7s and year 8s who want to be involved and want to be in the musical, and they don't necessarily have to be on stage singing. They can be backstage crew, or they can be helping with like lights and sound, or like assistant stage managing, that they can get involved in different ways.
So it's quite immersive, really,
Yeah.
for everybody, isn't it? It means that everybody's got a chance to work in a particular area. Why did you pick the Addams Family?
Look, we've done a lot of very serious drama things, and Superstar being one of the more recent ones, Les Miserables. We did 42nd Street, which was a dance-intensive one, and we thought a comedy would have been a really good idea for
It's
this
a good
one.
show. Ben, you've done an enormous amount, because we've had you on the program before, first of all with Teen Dream, and then with 60s 4, the group that you have sort of created. You've been musical director for many shows, and in this instance you're working with on the Addams Family.
Yeah, doing a bit of the teaching of the music to the ensemble. Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm just turned 18.
Okay, and you're both of you are in the school. Are you prefects in the school?
We're both head of performing, captain of performing
Captain
arts.
of performing.
Yeah,
I knew it was somewhere along those
Yeah.
lines. What does that mean to you, Ben?
I like it because I can kind of encourage the younger kids to power through and to keep doing lots of the performing arts, because I think one of the good things about performing arts is doing the performing arts doesn't just mean let's have a life in performing arts. It actually teaches you so many life skills, and I think that's one of the.
Well, there's you singing madly away with a little headset on, I can see. Being very smart. What was that show?
That was 42nd Street last year.
And there's another shot from 42nd Street.
For sure.
And this is you playing Jesus,
yeah.
in Superstar.
Yeah, which was an amazing
And again.
role to play.
It is, and it's obviously been a great thing for you, because it's opened up your whole world, and you've been working professionally for quite some time as well.
Yeah, and
has it been hard to fit in with the schoolwork?
Well, yeah.
Has it been hard to fit in with the schoolwork?
We find it a challenge at times.
It's
to
very
touch
much
base.
in demand, boy, that's why.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's fantastic. And we accommodate a lot of students with a lot of external activities. You know, sport's one of those things that we have to be very accommodating.
Well, it's a big school, and there's a lot of space there to do a lot of things.
Yeah, it is about the individual, and Ben's got particular individual plans, so's Taylor. And
what are yours, Taylor?
Well, in the long run, like in a couple of years' time, I'd like to go to Melbourne, do a dance course, and then go to NIDA and do an acting course if I can get in. And
you could do all that here in South Australia too, you realise?
Yeah, I feel like Melbourne and Sydney offer more, as like you can get agents and the musicals are like based over there kind of thing, whereas Adelaide isn't as big, so there's not many, like for me, there's just not many opportunities that I want to take here.
You might be surprised.
Yeah.
You might be surprised, truly. But look, it's great to have you here, because a lot of people just sort of go along and think everything is of an amateur nature, meaning that people aren't being paid for it. But clearly you're training people to think professionally, as you were just saying, that you're going to go on to study more, because these days part of the education system means that if you're going to be in show business, you're going to go to uni and one of the major tertiary education facilities around the country, and they're in every state. And it's great to watch young people like you developing to the extent you are. So Ben, what's your final destination in life, do you think?
Oh, I'd like to do something with the arts. I've come to, through Scotch, I've come to love the backstage stuff and the writing and the directing type of stuff as well, like the musical direction that I've done. So I've kind of fallen in love with both sides. And I also love writing, so I want to kind of combine it all and try and, yeah.
Well, I think in this country that's the best way to be, because you don't know what jobs are going to come your way.
Exactly.
So any way you can, way you can do that. Yeah. Where do you feel the future of performing arts in school is really going to go?
I think the being able to encompass the multi-arts is very much being directed by the Australian curriculum. We know that each of the performing arts have particular skill sets that are quite unique and specific. So I think the value of a holistic experience is vital. I do believe we have different disciplines, and I think it's a bit narrow-minded that we have one arts subject, which is meant to include visual art as well as performing arts.
Well, is it hard to keep up with everything that's happening and changing?
Political changes, consolidation. I see the whole skill-based thing and portfolio careers for people involved in the performing arts is vital. They not only have to be self-managing and self-promoting, which the technology is certainly making that possible, but really know their stuff across the whole sphere. And our curriculum's designed to do some of that. So us, musical, the Addams Family and all previous ones, we have a creative arts subject where the students study and use that as part of their grades and go towards their tertiary entrance ranking.
Well, we realise, I guess, that that was a huge hit around the world as a piece, as of course Superstar has been. So understanding also what audiences want to see, because if you don't perform to somebody, it's all a bit pointless, really.
Yes, knowing where it's come from and where the potentials of where it's going and the current trends, I think that's been something. And Taylor was one of these people who did one of these courses, the creative arts, last year.
Yes.
So is there value, do you think, in learning the history of where these things come from?
Yeah, there is. It's it can be quite hard to get your head around because it goes back like a long time, and some of it's a little bit confusing and jumbled. But I think it is beneficial to learn about the history, as it makes more sense as to why things happen.
Well, it also helps you know what the direction you're going to go in as well for the future. Well, we've got to take a break, and we'll be back with these lovely people just a moment. So we're talking with Dr. Anthony Hubmaier from Scotch College, along with two of the students who are both the leading lights, I guess, in your final year. Is it your final year at Scotch College?
Yep.
How do you feel about sort of coming to the end of this time that's almost like a tenure at a school, I suppose? You feel like you want to stay on forever.
Yeah, it's a little bit sad. I always see school as just kind of a security blanket. There's a big wide world out there, and it's the security blanket's about to get ripped off. But
do you feel the same?
Yeah, because we've just been doing this our whole life. We don't really know anything different, so it's just been like our routine. So it's a bit overwhelming that it's going to be finished.
But Scotch has prepared us to move out into the world. So yeah, we're as prepared as we could be.
Yes. Well, I guess that's the real thing, prepared as you could be. But we were just saying a moment ago about the need when you're doing a musical, for example, that people actually have to be able to sing. You can't fudge your way through that.
Depends on how good you want the musical to be.
Yes.
Mimicals that don't quite seem to work as well. But
oh, I haven't heard that expression before.
Well,
there's a
new
new trend you can do. Mimicals.
Yeah, Marcel Marceau got off on it pretty quickly, didn't he? Yeah. But anyway, we find that having students who are immersed across all the three, we call it the three performing arts, dance, drama, music.
Yeah, change it to acting and I'll be happy, but go ahead.
Really changes things because the acting helps build upon their expressive qualities, while we find the gesture, which dance is able to convey, is vital for that, the sort of comfort that when they can stand still. And likewise with music, singing being the whole body, standing still with expression, etc. Gee, it makes such a difference when we come from a solid core base where students are involved in co-curriculum, meaning that they rehearse at lunchtime, after school, etc. And the musical's just something that gets added on top of all of these other experiences. So there's a strong core base. And we take our time about putting the musical on, not in a hurry, but actually using it as a whole learning experience. And that's something we're really proud of, and these guys have developed through that process.
Well, I've heard so many good things and seen so many good people come out of this area. So if you're living in Adelaide and you're thinking about where to send your kids later on, here's a good opportunity at Scotch College. Now, if you'd like to continue to watch this program, fortunately, you may now be aware the Australian Government has extended the licences of all community television around Australia for the next 6 months until the end of this current year. We would personally like to suggest the government may change that whole idea and keep community television going forever. Because if you're watching us now on any of the platforms, which of course is free to air, or you may be watching us through one of these platforms you can see on the screen right now, right around Australia, then you would understand that you can always keep up, no matter where you are in the world, whether you're watching it in the comfort of your own home or on a handheld device or a computer, whatever. You download the apps that you can see right here and they will take you straight through to the station of your choice around Australia. So that means wherever you are in the world, you can keep up with what's happening back in your hometown, which is great. But we would very strongly recommend to the Australian Government that killing the licence of community television defeats the whole purpose of the continuation of people learning the trade, like the people we've just met from Scotch College, because their opportunities may go through community television or some form of community theatre before they end up in the professional world. But for now, Janice is still on holidays. I'm still here. We'll see you next time on Our Time. Keep yourself nice till then. Bye.